Hello and welcome to Nothing is Wrong with You book podcast. We are so excited that you're here with us today. This is a space where we talk about books, what we like, what we're liking, what we're not liking, and a little bit of the whys. And as always, we start with what we're currently reading. And I'm going to start today with Athena. What are you currently reading?
Okay, I'm currently reading. Let's see, let me get it out here. I just started. I'm halfway through, I guess. Old Soul, by Susan Barker. I had found it. I kept seeing it, and I found it at a used bookstore here in town, in the used but new. And I was like, well, okay. It's about these strangers that meet, and then they find out that they both have lost someone after that other person had met this dark, mysterious kind of woman, after they encountered this woman. So it's kind of like mystery, horror. They said it's part horror, part Western, part thriller. And it's really interesting. Then they just kind of come to find out that after all these people meet this woman, something happens to them. But it's just cool. It's beautifully done. And
In. I want to know.
yeah.
I want to know if
Oh,
that
good.
woman is as dangerous as
Yeah.
she is. I love books like
Yeah. It's very cool. So that's really cool. And it's interesting too, because it's like there's a paranormal element to it where they don't die, well, like with her in their presence. It's usually after they've met her. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's cool. I love that. What else am I reading? Oh, I picked up this. I've never read Ann Tyler. You know what I mean? Has anyone ever read Ann Tyler?
that
No.
either. No, that's a gap in my
I know. I
history.
never have. And so I picked this up. Um, and it's lovely so far. I love Ann Patchett was talking about Ann Tyler, and she says nothing happens but so much happens, like the way she writes about normal life. And so I like it so far. I'm only, a little bit in, but it's lovely. So those are my two.
Nice.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right.
What should I pass it along to? Who wants to
Colleen,
go
we'll go
next?
Colleen next. What are you reading?
Okay.
Okay. Um, these are all things I've just finished or am in the middle of. So the first thing I recently finished because I tore through it is you all talked about this. Paula Hawkins, The Blue Hour. Rip roaring read, loved it. Loved it way more than I liked Girl on a Train. So I just loved it. Um, we just had Shanita Hubbard on our campus, and so I've been working through her book Ride or Die, a feminist manifesto for the well-being of Black women. And then I finished this yesterday. It's called Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. And I do not say this lightly. It might be one of the most vicious books I've read in my entire reading life. It is.
Oof.
Whew, that is not for the faint of heart. It is about a virus wipes out all the animals, and so cannibalism becomes legal, but becomes like factory farming. So nobody really acknowledges that it's cannibalism.
Oh,
Wow.
God.
And it
I
is
know.
so good, but not, there are scenes that are not for the faint of heart. But it also is probably going to be one of the best books I say that I read this year. And she has a
Wow.
brand new, I just read in the New York Times, she has a new book coming out in March, which is
Wow.
called The Unworthy, that sounds equally dark. So I, dare I say, I tore through Tender Flesh as a vegetarian, but it was really all three of these are just really good. Some bangers this past week.
Wow.
Nice.
Becca, how about you?
Yeah, so on one of our last podcasts, Colleen, you had mentioned reading The Whispers, which I
Oh,
which I listened to, and you said at the time of our podcast that she has the best last lines, and I would totally agree. That was just like you end it going.
there should be some kind of like O. Henry Prize just for having the best last line of a book, and the push and the whispers are epic. They are so
Oh,
good at the end. I'm so
like
glad that you liked it at the end.
Yeah, so good, so good.
Yeah.
I also read Bird Life by Anna Smale. Um,
Obsessed already just by the title and the cover.
this was interesting. It's based in Japan. Kiwis teaching English over there, and there's a little bit of mental illness as well as spirituality, and um, yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it. And then I also just finished reading The Waves by Lydia Yuknovich. So good. I think I texted both of you saying this was swoon worthy, just even reading the preface. As always, she does a beautiful job taking you on her journey and just writing in wonderful, beautiful ways. And I think the big thing that I noted about this on my other podcast, Lit Illuminated, little plug there, is like the fluid nature of life and yet being grounded at the same time. So excellent, excellent work.
Love that. All of us
Yeah.
good things. All these good
Hmm.
things we read. And hopefully other people are reading. I had to laugh because there was a copy of God, what is the name of the memoir with the Sri Lanka and France? Why can I never remember this?
Oh, at other people's
Yeah. There was
words
a
or
copy of it
stories.
in the Percy Little Free Library. And I was like, that had to have been somebody that listened. Like, that is a random book. Like, somebody listened. And hopefully, if you listened and you read it, you liked it enough. It's okay. You put it in the Little Free Library. But I was like, I think this is a pretty, has got to be from the podcast.
Yeah.
Otherwise, a Little Free Library.
Nice little connection there. And then just a reminder to everybody, as always, we do put the links to the books we're reading in the show notes. So if you are interested, you can go there to check them out.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah.
Yay.
Love it.
Yeah.
So we are going to do something a little different today and not actually specifically talk about a book that we're liking or not liking. It's more about the medium. And so I want to just have a conversation with my book friends here on audiobook, yay or nay.
Mm.
And does it count as reading? I think that's one of the first things.
Of course it counts as reading. I would never say it doesn't
Yeah.
count.
It counts as
I
reading.
tell my students, I'm like, if you want to, like, I have audiobooks on our LibGuides, like, for free. I'm like, listen, that's fine with me. But I think the three of us have very different relationships with audio, the medium of audiobooks. I remember listening to books on CD a long time ago when I would be driving. And so I'll just like lay it out there. I do not really like audiobooks, and it's not the book's fault at all. I just don't. Oh, I should have even said this. I'm also reading. I'm putting in quotes because it's audiobook, but not because I think it's like not reading the new Imani Perry book. But like audiobooks just kind of become like forget about them. I don't know. And I drive 2 hours a day. It's not like I don't have time, but I cannot listen to fiction. I can only listen to nonfiction, mostly memoir. Even the Imani Perry book is hard for me to follow in my brain. So I think I'm kind of between the two of you with that format, but I do not love it. And I'm here to say it is okay if you don't have a subscription to Audible. I buy like audiobooks all the time. They're all half listened to on my phone. It's just not my jam. I don't know why. I listen to podcasts all the time that have ongoing stories, but something about it, I've never really attached to it. I totally count it as reading, though. I'm not one of those people that's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Do you think the length of time? Because I mean, just saying like that you listen to podcasts, but those are usually in shorter chunks, and then you get the next episode. Is it that it's like here you have like 21 hours of listening that you're just like I can't get to it, or
I even told you, Rebecca, I had a little minor eye procedure and I couldn't read for a week. And so I was laying there like, okay, like I'm going to listen to this audiobook. And I was like, ugh, I fell asleep. It's again, not Imani Perry's fault. It's a beautiful book. It's just, I can't listen to it while I'm walking. I can't focus. I don't know. I think it's a focus issue with fiction. Forget it. I have no interest in listening to fiction unless it's just like super story driven. But if I'm listening, if I read for language and I like to see it. So I'm trying to think of the last audiobook I actually finished. And I will tell you the funniest audiobook I ever read or bought was it was like a really popular book about Guantanamo Bay. And I can't remember the name of it. but a ton of it was redacted. So they'd be like reading a sentence and then say redacted and then keep reading the sentence. I was like, I was out of my mind. Within 10 minutes, I was like, F this. I'm not going to say the word. It was I mean, why? And also I will say, I'm sorry, that there are some books like Lincoln and the Bardo where I just think like absolutely would not be a good audiobook. There's other books that are probably better audiobooks, but there are certain books that just don't translate to that format. I have a lot of for somebody who doesn't listen to them, I have a lot of thoughts about them.
Was
But,
the Bono memoir your last audiobook?
thank you you remember, right? I did listen to the Bono memoir because we were going to see the Bono show for my husband's 50th birthday. And having Bono in my ear for a few hours is fine. That's fine. Like that's like the perfect example because there's parts they're singing and he sang and like that is thank you. That is an example of like an audiobook that I think is brought to life. But for me, I don't really need that. I don't need voices. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm a weird reader in general. So I read and I'm like, oh, look at how beautiful that sentence was. I don't think a lot of people, I know we do that, but I think I don't imagine it in my head. I know a lot of people imagine maybe this is a path we'll go down. People like create pictures in their heads. I've never done that. I don't do that ever. And I remember saying that at a book club once and everybody thought I was insane. And I was like, I don't know. So I think maybe there's some of that because I have to be looking at something else and maybe I should be creating that image in my head. I don't know. I have no idea.
Interesting. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I don't create. I'm curious if the two of you do that and maybe that has something to do with the format for you.
Well, I think I'm just going to kind of go back a little to the section of at the beginning, the question of does it count or not? I think when I first started listening to them, I didn't think it counted, and I'm going to tell you why. And that is because when I was a kid, and so my whole life in some way has been listening to books. I used to have way back in the day a little record that you would sit and listen to the record and it would give you a chime and you turn the page and so you were reading like you were like reading but you were also like looking at the pictures and but you were listening, right? And eventually those turned into tapes and everything, but at the beginning they were records. And of course, you go to school and they want to teach you how to read, and that doesn't count anymore, right? Like that whole concept of listening to a book is not reading. And so it's like, no, that doesn't count. And you're like, but I am reading. So that's where I had a really interesting, transition to having to say it does count as it does count as reading a book. I've listened to the whole book. I have read in quotes the book to leave behind that narrative I got at school when I was listening to books and it didn't count. Because you know how you're supposed to like when you're in elementary school, you're doing like how many books you read over the summer or whatever. I couldn't count any of the ones I
SRAs and all that.
listened to.
I let my daughter, I mean, she struggles with reading, but she can listen and follow. I think it's a great use of that.
I think
know,
the
but I
world's
had
progressed a little from the early
100%. 100%. Find any book read online on YouTube now.
Yeah, exactly. So before we get into my views on audiobooks and my love of them, Athena, how about you?
Yeah, I'm not an audiobook person. I tried a couple times and I I don't know, it doesn't work for me. I find the tone, even if they've got great actors, flat compared to what I feel when I'm reading it. Like there's something about it where I just don't I don't believe it. Like it doesn't. And then sometimes I want to like speed it up, so I'll like make it go faster, but then that sounds weird. Like it just I can't do it. It doesn't work for me. I think the only time things like that work is like my husband loves Lord of the Rings, and he's got an audio like book where it's almost a play where they have these people doing all the different voices, and it's like, but that's almost then like a stage reading. You know what I mean? But that even is like I wouldn't listen to that a lot, but I can kind of go with that more. But I don't know. It just I don't enjoy it, like I can walk for hours and listen to podcasts, you know what I mean? And that's fine. But I think I love just and like I think audiobooks are reading 100%. But for me, I love like holding the book. I love the act of reading. I find that when there's something beautiful I've read, I love being able to pause and not hit a button, but just go back and read it again. And I don't know, there's something more immersive for me in the experience when I'm holding it and reading it than when I'm listening to it. It's just like yeah, I get lost and then I zone out.
Yep.
And what I love about holding a book is like I kind of when I'm focused on the words, it's harder for me to do that.
Yep.
Like it's like I can put it down and go, okay, I'm not thinking about this right now. Whereas I could have an audiobook playing in the background and be thinking about everything else for like, you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just never, I've tried a few times though. I always give things a shot because I do like to just go on long walks and I thought, oh, wouldn't this be great to, be able to enjoy a book, but I don't know. I can't, it's hard for me.
Do you have one that you like? Rebecca remembered that I forgot that I liked Bono's. Like, have you ever had one that you experienced that you actually did like?
Well, and I'm a quilter, so when I'm like hand binding at the end, like I thought, oh, this is a great time to like listen to an audiobook. So I remember trying a random one though. I didn't try something. I tried Jodi Picoult's like Mad Honey. I know. I don't think that was the best one to because I have lots of thoughts about that. But but to try it on. But no, like yeah, like it didn't work. I just found the tone so like of the narrator kind of flat to me.
Yeah.
It
I feel
sounds
like
really,
I feel like you and I, Athena, are in the minority here.
yes.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong. Maybe it's just easier to share if you're reading audiobooks. You can take a screenshot and put it on. But I think you and I am curious about this because I feel like there's like a tangential conversation about a Kindle because
Oh, yeah.
I don't have a Kindle. You
Yeah.
just talked about the physical nature of it. I know Rebecca doesn't either. Like
Yeah.
I wonder if there's something about that too. I wonder if there's a connection between not really connecting with even a book on a Kindle. Um,
Yeah.
I know Rebecca is going to be the anomaly in this group, but as soon as you said that, the feeling of the book and the getting of the book and the touching of the book
Yeah.
and looking back and marking things and I know you can kind of do that on a Kindle, but that has never spoken to me either.
No.
I would rather stare at a wall than read a book on
Yeah.
a Kindle.
I can't
Yes.
even I can't even like read a PDF like art like a long academic
I
article or
can't
anything
I will
online. I will print it out
I will print it out. Yes.
and
Same.
write on it. Same thing. So you can like make notes and just like hold it. I cannot read a PDF or a big long article online.
I can't do it
Yeah.
like that. And like with proofs of books,
Oh,
like, your book and then our book and like looking at it, I don't know how anybody who's an agent or has to get these things that look like PDFs and I just think they all look bad. So nothing, I'm not attached to any of it. So God bless the people that can
mm,
look at that and like see the vibrancy of the words. I'm wondering if that's because Rebecca and I have graded so many papers in our lives that maybe we associate the two. Like, I don't know. But you, Athena, talking about the physical nature of a book meaning so much to me. I had those little record things too, but
Hmm.
even I can, you can hold the book and
I
you're
had a book.
I'm
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
holding a book. Like
Yeah.
I have recipe books on because I get all these credits right on Amazon and I won't even use a recipe. I won't even like cook out of a cookbook on a Kindle.
Yeah.
It's just not for me. So I'm wondering there might actually be a little bit of a connection because the three of us would benefit from Kindle
Hmm.
reading because we
Hmm.
wouldn't have I mean, I love having 8,000 books, but um
Well, I wouldn't
I've
have to
tried.
travel with a suitcase of books.
I'm thinking of traveling. Exactly. I'm thinking of
I
traveling,
tried. I
right? And
got one for traveling and then I didn't use
Oh,
it.
you have one?
Oh, I bought one. I have like a, what's it called? A paper, whatever. And I gave
paperweight
it
or
to
something.
my,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I gave it to
I
my
just use
son
my
because
phone. Yeah.
I just can't do it. Like I went, I got it for when I went on a work trip and then I just don't, I like it. I just,
I hate it.
I'm also weird about audiobooks because I feel like it almost puts a voice in my head that I might not want to
That might be
associate
it. That might be it for
with
me.
it. Yeah, like I don't want to, like I was thinking of a memoir I just finished and I don't know if or a book novel I just finished. I don't know if I'd want to hear what they thought. It's like when you watch the movie of the book and you're like, oh. well, that was so different when I was reading it, and I don't like that, you know.
Oh, I would
Yeah,
So
not
I was,
compare it.
and
I
it's
would not
being
compare it to a movie because take half the stuff
well,
out.
I,
um, I think that you're right. It's being I think maybe that's some of this too, right? It's being mediated for me, and I don't like that. I don't want
yeah,
anything mediating this book for me.
right,
So I
right.
think you're probably spot on that. I do want to say I did read one book. There was one time where it was really valuable. I read The Hunger Games on my phone when I was
Oh,
nursing my daughter. That was
oh,
the only thing I could hold at the same time.
yeah,
I did read, there was like a short period of time where actually that was really a valuable format for me. But
yeah,
otherwise it was, and that was out of necessity. But I'm all for reading anyway. You get these stories,
yes,
develop empathy in
yeah.
your head. I think it's interesting that you and I are so particular.
Hmm.
I
But I
think,
know Rebecca
Yeah, you
tried
love.
some of her strategies. I'm curious for you to share with us your relationship, your abusive relationship with audio. I'm just joking. But please tell us about how you interact with these.
well, I started with audiobooks again after, like, again, my whole trauma of a kid being told it's not reading, to later in life, maybe my early 30s, to use it for exercise. I read somewhere in a magazine, like, you can use this as a way to go outside. And so, in the sense, or walk, I guess, treadmill, but outside was the comment. And you can only like listen to your book when you do that. Like, so you can't come in the house and then keep listening. It was like it forced me to get back outside the next day or even go later in the day because it was like, I want to know what's happening. um,
Oh,
so
Yeah,
it became like a tool, right? Of like, this is a way to get me outside and walking is to strictly only allow listening when I'm walking. And so that's how it started. And that
yeah,
was tapes and CDs. And so I think I've talked about this one other time on the podcast where I took a backpack with all the tapes with me. So
yeah.
if I had
what
to
book,
switch the
Rebecca?
tape,
Of what book?
that was Moby Dick.
Yeah. If you told me I had to listen to Moby Dick, I would I would not be happy.
It was
I
horrible.
just like I love imagining you with your like backpack and you're like, I'm gonna find out what happened to Ahab today. Here we go.
It was
I just
horrible.
love it. I love that story about you. I treasure it because I can totally see you just doing that.
And so I broke that rule a little when we moved here to Bellingham, where I would walk to go catch the bus, and so then I would also listen to it on the bus. So it was some bus travel as well. And then after that, like when it became really easy to get them from the library and just download them onto my phone, like as that kind of progressed in the world, I just never stopped. I've just constantly listened to them, and I will say early on I was listening to them at the normal speed.
Yes, let's
Um,
talk about the speed at which you listen to these books,
yeah,
Rebecca.
so now I typically listen at like 2.85 speed.
Excellent.
Um, and that's slowly progressed, right? Like I think like
Love it.
I can't imagine that you could go from that instantaneously. And the only time that sometimes have to slow it down is tone. Sometimes or there's a lot of accents that I'm just trying to like hone back in on. But usually, once I've been listening to it a little, then I can ramp it back up again because there's something about building the cadence. And I think this is also important to me. Why the speed is fast is because I'm using it to walk, and
Yeah.
I want to walk fast. And so I don't
Yeah.
want to sit there and then be like, and then they said, which is what the one speed sounds like now. When it came the first time, just recently, my phone like reverted back to one speed, and I thought I was having a stroke or something. I was like, what just happened? Like, why is everything so slow?
Do you remember when I called you or texted you from the car because I had downloaded an audiobook for a long ride home and I tried to listen to it at 1.25 and I texted you and I'm like, this is awful. It's like listening to the chipmunks read this book. How do you do this? And it was
I know.
1.25, 1.25. And
Yeah.
I could not do it. And I know it's like a marathon you build up. I don't know how you have listened to them at 3, you've told me.
I have listened to them at 3, and that because again,
Is that the
it could
maximum? Is
No,
there
no,
like
I think you can go more than that. But it depends on who's reading it and their speed of reading it.
Right.
So that's where, to both your comments of like tone, like who's reading it, but I think once you've like kind of sped it up, you don't necessarily get their voice in your head. You're getting the story. Like you're not like getting that, I don't know. I think because I also listen to it sometimes. Again, I've totally broken my rules of just being walking, and I listen to it in my house when I'm doing stuff now too. But so when I put it on a speaker, so to note, this fast speed is always with headphones. I
oh,
cannot
that's
listen to it
important. Okay.
fast in a
That's important.
speaker.
Okay.
But sometimes I do turn a speaker on to listen to it when I'm getting a shower or something, or like I don't want to have my headphones in. And I used to have to revert it back to one.
Uh-huh.
I am now able to listen to it at 1.75 because I listen to it typically at 2.85, right? So I can listen to it on a speaker at 1.75. So that's another thing which I talked to you about when you were listening to it on your in your car, was like that's sometimes way too hard when you're listening to on a speaker. You should go fast until
Yeah.
you've built the muscle to do that, essentially the listening space to do that. But there are times, and I think it was the fact of a body, which we've talked about in this podcast, that I was like walking. I mean, they must think I'm a little out of it on the trails here, because I'll be like, oh my god, like what just happened? And sometimes I have to stop and I want to listen to it again, like did I hear that right? So there are moments that you can, just get so in the pace of everything that you're just like, I want to make sure I really heard that right.
Yeah.
And it's simple, just go back 30 seconds, just be like, what was that again? And usually it was like, yes, I did hear that right, or that character
Hmm.
did die, and you're like, what?
Yeah,
No.
like those books where if you blink something, you're like, I always tell my students that I'm like, if you blink, there'll be a whole
Yeah.
paragraph describing something. Then if you blink, you'll miss like this major plot point. So
Right. Right.
Yeah,
to
like,
be
or
very
if you get into that skimming space that you're just like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm gonna skim for a little. Like that's often
Yeah.
when you miss those important spots.
Mm.
But so yeah, mine's really
Yeah.
a mechanism to get me out walking and walking fast. And so for the most part, it's fiction, which I think is interesting because it's the difference between the two of us, right? That you're like, I won't listen to fiction, but for me, I'd much rather have nonfiction, like memoir, in my hand.
Mm.
And fiction just seems to me, in some way, like a movie, like a story, like Athena, you were saying with Lord of the Rings. Like you're just listening to a story. It's like a play,
Yeah.
And I think this is interesting when you said about the images, because I don't know if I fully put the images in my head, but there's some kind of visual. There's something that's happening there, that along with the listening, and I think that
Yeah.
happens more with the listening than it does with the reading.
yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I just don't do, maybe it's just because I just don't do that and I've never been a reader like that. And so I'm
Mhm.
Athena. I'll be like, oh right, I'm listening to a book.
Right. Right. Right.
And then I'm
I
like,
don't.
how far back did I stop listening? Oh, and
Well.
this book is
Yeah.
only 17 hours long. So, like, let's get to
Right.
it.
So
Well, and the speed of things is really interesting to me. Like that one that baffles me a bit.
Me
I
too.
respect it and I get it and exercise, but I speed like training videos up when I
Me
want to
too.
just get through it. Like the speed going up for me is get through it, get it done,
Yes.
which to me is the opposite of how I feel when I read. So I don't, that to me is baffling. Like that's like the opposite of what the reading experience to me is like. I do not want it sped up. Like I want to just, but I get it for like the cadence of like that with walking and stuff. But that's fascinating because that would totally take me out of it and make it feel almost like work, like something to get through, because that's what it is for me when I like speed up those training videos. Like I just want to get through it. Like
And
I
those
don't,
have closed captioning, right? I can read really fast. So I'm still
right.
getting everything. Um,
Yeah. Oh,
but
yeah, that's
same.
fascinating.
That's the only thing. But I'm not listening.
Right.
I'm not listening to those. I'm reading it. And so I'm like,
Right.
I can read way faster than they're talking. Like, let's get this going. But I'm not listening to them then.
Yeah, that's
when I
interesting.
think that's the thing with the speed, like when I first started just speeding up a little, like 1.5 or something, because when you would read a book out loud, it's going to take you longer to read it out loud than it would for you to just read it, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
by just bumping it up a little, you're getting it to probably closer to the speed you would read, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like, because if you had to read every book that you were reading out loud, how much longer would that take you to actually read a book?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, so
Yeah.
for example, Athena shared Geraldine Brooks's Memorial
Yeah.
Day
Yeah.
book with us
Yeah.
that she had read. And so I'm like, oh, I'll add that to my list. And I needed something to listen to when I was out for a walk. Um, and I finished that in my whole walk. So I walk 5 miles a day. And because of the speed I had it on from start to finish. So it was brilliant. It was like I just got the whole book on my one
Mm-hmm.
walk. Because I had it sped up, and she was reading it too. I like when the authors read it,
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
That's
especially
the
when it's
only
memoir.
option. Only option is
Yeah,
if the
when
author.
it's
Yeah.
memoir. Yeah, because I also listened to the Three Dogs and the Truth, the
Oh,
book
yeah.
thief guy,
Yeah.
author. That was also another one that he read as well. But I think it's interesting because you both talked about listening to podcasts. And I don't like listening to podcasts when I walk, because what I don't like is that they never last as long as my
Mm.
walk. And so then I have to go and find another one, or if it's a serial one and they have the next one comes up, then great. But
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
many times when I've tried to listen to podcasts on my walk, and I have because I've done it, I get really annoyed because I'm like, either I start listening, I'm like, oh, I don't like this person they're interviewing, or not like them, but I don't want, it's not giving me the
Boring.
energy to keep moving, because that's what it's all about, the energy to keep moving. Um, and so I can't really listen to podcasts when I walk. I'll listen to it when I'm doing stuff around the house, or, driving, but I don't like listening to them when I
I'm trying
walk.
to think. I don't listen to podcasts when I walk as much either, I guess. I mean, I don't walk nearly as much as you and Athena, but um yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I guess I don't know. I'm listening to music usually, but
Mm-hmm.
podcasts I can tune out and I can come back in and I haven't missed anything. I think that's for me the
Yeah.
difference is if I tune out for a minute, not and or I get something else happens, but I am like frustrated in a book if I'm like, oh F, right? Like I need to go back and listen to that again. And I just I can't focus. I've never been a person who focuses listening ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and that's, my superpower is reading, thank God. It's my job. But um no,
Yeah.
Rebecca, I tease you, I know all the time about this because I think it's a great, like, I'm jealous.
Yeah. I wish I could.
You consume, like, not that we want to consume books, but like you experience so many more books than me because of that. Like, because it's not, oh, I have to find the time to like literally sit down and do this. So it makes me jealous, but it's not something I'm ever working toward. I do feel like a deep satisfaction when I've finished an audiobook. Maybe it's one a year. Maybe.
Yeah, and
Rebecca, want to walk.
I think you talked about this earlier too, about like the absorbing or what you're getting out of it. And I think for me, it's a little tricky because I will absorb the stories more in audio as like those pictures, as like the feelings of them. Where reading, I'm usually underlining, and I'm more engaged with it that way, and they will stay with me in a different way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like not so emotional, but more intellectual when it's a
Hmm.
book I'm reading as opposed to
Hmm.
listening.
Hmm.
I'm just working this
Well,
out
that makes
now
sense
with
because
you.
it's like different work. It's almost like a completely different activity for you.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
wanting it to replicate the activity for me, and it
Right.
doesn't, so I get frustrated. For you,
Yeah.
it's not the same activity. They're two different things with two different end goals. And that's probably why you have a different relationship than I do. And then maybe I don't want to speak for Athena, but Athena.
No, you're right. Yeah.
I think the other
Yeah.
thing is, and I've talked about this in the podcast as well, is that I have listened to books that I'm like, I need that book. And I will go and buy the book after I've listened to it to just also look at the pages. How did they do that? How did, like, some of it's like how they set it up. Some of it's just that I had such a connection with it that it was like, I need that. Like one of them was The Fact of a Body. Another one was Sally Rooney's book. I can't remember which one it was now, but anyway, doesn't matter.
People in the title.
But those are the ones that you're like, I just love this so much that I want to have the physical copy as well.
Yeah. That you can keep, maybe that's some of it too. It's ephemeral. Listening to a book is ephemeral. And I don't feel ephemeral at all about my book. Like I don't, me reading is like probably the most tangible, concrete thing going on. So maybe that's another reason why. I mean, I never thought about that, but that might be another reason why I don't like it. Very interesting to hear what you think about. I've talked about this because of Rebecca, and I joke with her all the time about it. I imagine her like,
I know,
to her book. And I walk differently than Rebecca. I don't walk fast. I'm a meanderer. And that's probably also part of this is, I got dogs that I'm paying attention to, and I'm like, so I'm not really focusing. I'm not having the same experience.
Yeah. I often, again, on the trails, I feel bad that sometimes I don't really pay attention to who's there. I'll like look up and smile, but that's about it. Cause I'm like, I am in a world, right? Like I am somewhere else besides the trail in Bellingham. But at the same time, that doesn't mean I'm totally not paying attention to the world, right? There's been times where hummingbirds have come in front of me, or I see owls up in the trees, or I hear the birds. Like that's all still part of it. Like I can hear the world around me, in addition to listening to these things. And that's also given me some interesting experiences. So Athena, it was a book you had told me about, the nature book that takes in all like the lines from multiple literature pieces that are all about scenery and not about people.
I love that book.
And I tried to read this, and so this is often my methodology as well. If I try to read it and I'm not connecting, I'll get it as the audiobook and see if I can connect with it there. And sometimes that's just about timing and where I am, and because there's other books I want to be reading, and this is another way to listen at the same time to kind of digest it. And that was a beautiful one to listen to while I was walking. Because it's all about nature and the world around you. And so that was one that I was listening to and really paying attention to the woods and the birds and the little like squirrels and everything, right? Like I think, so there's some ways for me that listening is a way to engage with the world around me as well.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, and that's what we have to say about that, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think that
helping everybody be mindful of their life as a reader too. I love talking to people about that. Like everybody's life as a reader is different, not just what they read, but what it means to them, how they do it, what they bring from their past about it. Like all those things are so beautiful to me. I love, and writing, I like talking about that with writing too, but we're all different readers too. And then we all read a similar book and we all have a different experience. And then, of course, this is why my life's work, like, it's just so exciting to me that this little thing can be so much. And so then we have another format that I think gets other people in the game. And I'm like, however we get people into the game, I'm in. I'm not a judge. I want everybody to get that empathy muscle stronger. So you want to listen to it? Great. You want to read it on your Kindle? Great. You want to, there's probably want to find it on YouTube and watch a librarian reading it to you? Great. Do it, please.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's however you need to get into the book is perfect.
No judgment.
Yeah.
We listen and we do not judge.
Right.
So speaking of which,
love to listen. We would actually love if you told us in the comments what you are. We listen and we do not judge. That should be like the subtitle of this podcast.
That'll be the
Yeah.
title maybe. So
Yeah.
as always, thanks everybody for sharing your thoughts on audiobooks. But as always, at the end of the podcast, we give a recommendation. And the book today that we are recommending is The Book of Delights by Ross Gay. These are some essays, and this was a passionate plea from Colleen and Athena on this should be our recommendation for this podcast. So share your thoughts, my friends.
Athena, give it a start. Tell us what this book
Me?
is to you. Yeah.
Oh, I just love it. I love Ross Gay's writing. Like anything that he writes. Like he was supposed to come here to Bellingham to a small church and speak, and then he had to cancel. And I was like, oh, it's
I'd have been
heartbroken.
devastated. Devastated.
I know I was. I was like, oh, I was looking forward to that. I just think it's beautiful. I think his writing is beautiful. It gives me a feeling of hope, and he has a way of, um, like changing my perspective on things. I'm trying to think. There was a moment, oh gosh, what was he talking about in a garden? And I read it to my husband, and we both just kind of paused and were like, I hadn't thought of it that way. And I feel like that's the kind of thing his writing does for me all the time. I love it. I love him. I think he's brilliant. I think it's beautiful. I think it's poetic. I think he is a gift. I don't know. I just love it.
That's a great segue, because I went into my closet when we were doing it, and to pull this out, I actually at one point had a stack of like 20 of these in my closet, and anytime
Oh,
I saw someone, I just gave it to them.
oh,
And
that's gorgeous.
because I was like, I need you to have this book, because
Yeah.
then there's the Book of More Delights,
Yes.
and Inciting Joy, I think, was his first book, and I fell in love with
Mhm.
that. I would follow this man to the ends of the earth for his writing.
I
I
love it.
would, if I were stranded on a deserted island, I would hopefully get to take all three, but it would probably be one of his books, because they're just so gosh darn good. Like
I
they're
know.
bite sized, they're poignant, they're honest,
Mhm.
they're funny, they're
Yeah,
emotional. I can't say enough about how much I love his work, and
I
I
agree.
just want everyone to have it. I want it's like, I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, like the morning book, right? I always kind of have a morning book that needs to be
Yep.
short, bite-sized, lifts me up, speaks to me, meets me where I'm at. And I just think his work does that. I read it at the end of yoga classes that I teach. I
Yep.
have used it in classes that I teach as examples of essays. And he's from around here, and he went to college from
Mhm.
around here. So I love that there are references like that. And I love that he was like first gen, and I love when he talks
Mhm.
about his family. I just love everything about him. I love
Yep.
his books. And I would judge. We listen and we do not judge. I might judge if you write to me and tell me Ross Gay stinks, because I might be like,
I
I don't understand that. In
yeah,
fact, I have
agree.
a book that he talks about a lot, Gerald Stern's Stealing History. He talks about that book so much that I bought it, and I'm like waiting to read it. Like I said, I would follow him anywhere. He talks about how good that
Yeah.
book is. I was like, great, I'll buy that.
Yep.
Whatever has made you be what
Yep.
you are, I want to do that
Yeah.
thing. And
Well, I think so. Yeah.
lastly, collectivity, kind of anti-capitalism,
Yes.
unity.
Yeah.
The fact that he's a professor, and how he talks about once he got tenure, he's like, everybody got an A. I don't have to worry about that anymore. So people can actually write poetry and not worry. Like, I just love,
Yeah.
we meet in a lot of places, and that might be one of
Yeah.
the reasons. Anyway, I could
Yeah.
talk for 7 more minutes about Ross Gay, but I will not.
Yeah. You just feel like you can tell what a wonderful person he is through the writing. You know
Imagine
what I mean? Like
jerk. Oh God, could you imagine
I know.
a jerk after all this?
Please don't let him be a jerk. Oy. I know. You just feel like it. Yeah. His writing gives me hope.
Me too. Me too. This is a great time in life to pick up a
Oh,
Ross Gay book, actually. It might make you
yeah.
feel better.
I think it's interesting. I'm not someone that goes into books of essays a lot. Like I'd rather have a story in there, but um, this is one I think, like you said, Colleen, it has really bite size. You can just like get in and savor it, and then, go about your day and then come back in and savor it again. They're not like the essay books that I'm not drawn to are the ones that have like really long, like you're in there forever and you're like, are we going to get to the point here? So I love
Yeah.
that. And it's interesting that I just want to show here for those that are watching, my tabs are at the top because I selected the whole essay. Like normally the tabs are like, I like this little line here or this here, right? And I have a couple of those, but for the most part, it was like this whole thing
Hmm.
was like impactful. And so I
Yeah.
think that's a difference here too, is that it's not about lines, it's about the whole message and each
Yeah.
essay and the whole way that it is expressing those. And briefly, as I was looking here where I have tabs,
I
and
know I'm looking at what I've tabbed in my, yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
there was a part of it there about Greg the groundhog, and I'm like, he
Hmm.
can't be a jerk if he has he names and talks
Yeah.
to a groundhog. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ross, this could be the fan club you've always wanted. I don't know. I don't know. I just I love, and I
I
love that
know.
he's friends with the poet who wrote The World of Wonders. I went to like a
Hmm.
webinar that the two of them did. I delight in
Yeah.
their friendship. I like
Yeah.
that he lifts other people up. I also like that he's not on Instagram.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Yeah.
know, he has no like social media presence. God bless him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is my last copy. Actually, I think I've given out all of my copies. So someone will get it. And if they already had it, I tell them to take it anyway and give it to somebody else who might not. That's how much I love that book. I love it.
I love it.
Well, as you can see, we really love the one we're recommending today.
So love
Thank, thank you for joining us. Again, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple.
Tell us what
Um,
kind of books you like. Tell us if
Yeah.
you like Ross Gay.
yeah.
We want to know. We
Yeah.
want to be part of your reading life. That's why we're here. Thanks, Rebecca, for
Thanks.
keeping us focused.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Okay. Bye.